Manjeet asks a question. How do you manage the process of writing a book? I find it extremely difficult and frustrating, and I'm interested given your previous discussion on habits and experience with publishing a number of bestsellers. Do you have a process you follow, for example, setting a goal, creating themes, writing for X amount every day? Manjeet, for me, and I went over this in another video on workshopping, but there are a few times in my career where I set out to write a book. That have been 40 Years of the Whistle, Intervention, Can You Go, and Now What? Those were clearly, I'm setting out to write a book. I also think those are my four best works, but obviously the readership doesn't agree with that. So the biggest issue, Manjeet, is you first got to do, it's the writing itself. And what I like to do best, I'll just pull one up, I just start off, this is a travel folder, but I start off with these big manila envelopes, okay? And what I do is I just write up, and this, by the way, workshop is the same process I use. I just write up on this thing some ideas. And if I find an article or anything that supports it, I'll pop it in here. So these ideas, okay, I want to talk about easy strength. Oh, okay, all right, easy strength. I want to talk about, if I'm going to talk about easy strength, how is it going to help impact people? Oh, I use my quadrants to let people know how I impact people. Quadrants. Well, all of a sudden, the second I said quadrants, I'd pick up another one of these folders and write just quadrant on the top, knowing that that is going to be, a series of chapters. And I just keep, and that's how I start with Sharpie and these manila envelopes and just dropping in ideas, either physically dropping in or writing them on the manila envelope. Once I get probably, by the way, that whole process might take 5 minutes, maybe not even that long. Well, the next thing I do then, and this works for me, is I bring out a PowerPoint, I open up a PowerPoint presentation, and I write on it a title. And the title might not be any good at all, because it's going to change. And then what I start to do is I start putting in these ideas. And here's the thing I like about PowerPoint, is that I can add a picture to PowerPoints. Now, maybe it's a picture of me lifting weights at Dick Knopmeyer's gym. But then when I look at that picture a couple of weeks later, I'll be like, oh, I got to tell the story about why I picked this picture. And then there'll be a story in the background, and my brother Phil might be sitting there. There's Joy, there's Josh, there's Danny, there's Eric. And every one of those guys, oh, Josh, Danny, Eric. And I'll start thinking, oh, I got to talk about that. The moment I start typing that, I got to talk about that, now I'm beginning to fill in the book. Manjeet, the number one problem I see with most people when they write books is they try to start off like Charles Dickens in The Tale of Two Cities, It's the best of times, it's the worst of times. Nobody starts off a book with that brilliance, or in Genesis, in the beginning. Yeah, that's a great line. Nobody starts off that well. So what I usually do is when I have this idea that this is going to be the book, okay? So I have 15 of these manila folders. I have a few ideas of pictures and little notes from here. What I do is I find something right in the middle that's easy to type up. Maybe it's a couple stories about Eric Subert and me training. I type those up. Now I'm up to 7 pages because there's a lot of stories about me and Eric training. And all of a sudden, and then I see that, the part here, I got to let people know where this is coming from. Oh, it's principle number 7, and the importance of a training partner. Oh, the importance of a training partner. I better let people know what, maybe I need a chapter on what is a bad training partner. Wow. By the way, I just thought of that, and it's not bad at all. I kind of like where this is going. So that's how I start. First, the manila envelopes, the manila folders with the Sharpie with some general ideas. What are my habits? The first habit that's very important for me, maybe not you, Manjeet, is before I go to bed at night, I write up 1 or 2 word to-do list. Sometimes it's podcast at 8, pick up dog, podcast at 8, so I don't have to think about it. I set the coffee and I wake up to the smell of coffee. Generally, I get up about 5 in the morning. I like to answer emails before I get going because emails are practice for me as a writer. And then I'll just pull out a folder and I'll look at something and I go, and if it inspires me, I'll start writing. I'll write sometimes about 2, maybe 3 hours. I don't eat until I work out, so I train at 9:30 every day, and then after that I eat my first meal of the day. I don't necessarily write in the afternoon, but sometimes I will sit down because during the workout or when I went shopping or when I was folding clothes, a clarifying concept came in my head and I might just go in and write. Now here's what happens. When I go in and add that little extra paragraph, because there's 50 paragraphs and then I type in an extra one. But then I look above and I'll realize that I said they. Well, what did I mean by they there? And then I'll realize that that's not a good sentence, and I'll retype that sentence. And then I'll realize that I need another paragraph because it's a little vague. And in the afternoon sometimes, I wouldn't want to call that proofreading or editing. To me, it's more like that is the process of the growth of the book. Okay? And what happens is I probably dive in to every chapter, I don't want to give you a number, but let's say a dozen times. Let's throw it out there a dozen times. So every chapter isn't necessarily rewritten. It's not rewritten. It's rediscovered and redialogued. And to me, that is the process of fleshing out a book into something great. When you do write books, you need to have stories in there. People love stories and stories about people. You need to have some clarity as you write. And I always tell people, I've always been told you write to your audience. And here's a weird thing. It's going to come off cocky, but just go this. The audience is me. My audience is me. I'm writing to little Danny John 40 years ago, 50 years ago. I'm trying to help him with the hurdles he's dealing with, okay? Now, I don't ever say that in a book, and ideally, when you read my workman Jeet, would be like, no, he's writing to me. Because in a sense, my thought is, if I'm writing to my younger self, I'm also writing to everybody else too. I hope that helps. If you need more follow-up, ping me a note.